Welcome to This Week in Northwest Georgia Football, brought to you by Riverside Auto Group and produced by WLAQ Sports. Each week, we bring you insight, analysis, interviews, and our predictions for the week's matchups around the Northwest Georgia area. Here are your hosts.
Well, here we are, your hosts, and to bring you another week of This Week in Northwest Georgia Football. I'm Matt Davis, he's Ian Griffin, and we're about to give you a little bit of analysis and make some predictions of this week's high school football games. And Ian, we're getting ready for week 4 to kick off.
Can't believe it.
Man.
I can't believe it. You wait for it to get here, and then it just flies by.
I mean, you have some teams that, after this weekend will be a game away from being at the middle of the season, which is mind-numbing. And we say that every year, but it's because it's true every year. It just goes by. It's the old cliche saying, time flies when you're having fun. And it's been a really exciting, entertaining, action-packed season so far. And it seems like every single week we've got a tough slate of games to talk about and to predict, which I think is great for the fan bases out there. They're getting some competitive football.
Yeah, I agree. The non-region slate has been a lot of fun as we near region play. Still got some teams that will have some more non-region games next week, but we're getting close to it, and our area teams have had some really good scraps, and the slate of games this week's excellent. So, but I want to give you the opportunity to gloat a little bit. I got a game back on you 2 weeks ago, but then you took it right back from me last week. So what were your big takeaways from last week's results?
Well, I was 6-1. You were 5-2 last week. The game that we both missed was the Pepperell Christian Heritage game, and we're going to talk more detail about that matchup in just a little bit when we talk about Pepperell's matchup coming up this weekend. But it was a heartbreaking loss for the Dragons there at home last weekend against Christian Heritage, a good football team. And then the difference that we had last week is I took Model to beat Coosa. You went with Coosa Eagles. Model put together a tremendous amount of offense behind a big running game. Also got some good receivers in the mix in that particular game. And like I said, put up big offensive numbers and pulled away in that game. It was close at halftime, but they were able to pull away in the second half and win that game. So with that said, overall wise, my record's 15-6, and yours is currently 13-8. So just a 2-game gap with a lot of season left to go. So we're right there in the mix with one another.
And I feel like there could be some differences this week.
I'm looking at the slate of games. I definitely think we're going to have one or two, maybe more. We'll see what happens. And again, back to that initial point, there's just been a lot of really competitive games on the slate of games that we talked about through 3 weeks and now going into a 4th week, which, again, is great fun for the fans. Obviously, for programs, that's created a lot of stress, I would presume.
Yeah.
But it's created a lot of excitement for the fans, and it's going to be another exciting week. So, obviously, one of the games that we're going to dive into and talk about is this team is off this weekend. We'll talk about Darlington, also a little bit about Unity and what their season's been like so far. But, Ian, break down last week's win for the Darlington Tigers, quadruple overtime. Gritty performance. When was the last time you seen a group of young men and coaches have to kind of pull themselves up by the bootstraps and come up with as an impressive and inspiring win as we got to see from the Tigers last week? Quadruple overtime.
Yeah, absolutely. Coming into the game, the Tigers were banged up. I thought I would pull up my text from Coach Groves, but I think he said they went with 24 players last week is what they walked into that could actually go out there and play due to the injury bug really hitting them hard early in the season. One of those that stepped out on the field was Nate Konchesky, who was filling in for Levi Duggan, who broke a couple of fingers a few weeks back, and Nate played a great game, and he scored a touchdown late in the game to give Darlington a 7-point lead. And on that play, he injured his ankle, and it was obvious he wasn't going back into the game, so they were on their 3rd-string quarterback. Ridgeland was able to answer. Every time Darlington took a lead, the Panthers found a way to even the game up, and they didn't take their first lead until they got to overtime. But Jace Donaldson, as I mentioned, had to move into the quarterback role, so they're on their 3rd-string quarterback. They continued to answer the bell. And after 4 overtimes, they punched it in and were able to get a stop on the ensuing Ridgeland 2-point opportunity, and they won it 44-42 in what I would dub a thriller at the Lakeside.
Well, Ian, and to your point, I've got that information pulled up, so we'll run it back real quick. Third-string B-backs, third-string quarterback, third-string linebacker, third-string A-back, backup corner, backup safety, backup offensive line, backup long snapper, 8 kids playing both ways that played over 130 snaps. And then when you look at Ridgeland, a team with some depth, they are a much improved team over last year's team, 72 players. Then only a couple of kids played both ways. So that was quite a feat there. And again, it was one of those situations where oftentimes when we're watching these kids play, we come away inspired. But I don't remember another time where I was more inspired by what we saw on Friday night from the Tigers.
Yeah, a gutsy performance, a real program win there for Coach Groves and all the staff and players out there at Darlington. And a joy to be there on the call. It was stressful, but they got it done. And the drama continued. They had a chance to kick a game-winning field goal. Couldn't get the snap down on that one, and then they block an extra point in the first overtime period, and then they score the touchdown and have a chance once again to win with the extra point, and had some issues with the snap. And you noted that they were playing with backup guys at that position, and it just seemed like every time Darlington had a chance to put it away, they couldn't quite get it done. But man,
they kept fighting.
Exactly. That to me is a testament to how much these young men have bought in to Coach Groves and the way he runs his program. You got to shake it off and move on to the next play, and they did it. And they kept scrapping even when it looked like it was over. The Tigers found a way just to go out there and fight one more play and got a big win.
And, sometimes, and we've seen this a lot, if you've been a football fan for any length of time, sometimes you got to rely on the gritty more than you do the pretty.
Right.
And it was kind of one of those situations. But very well earned and well timed bye week this week. They'll hopefully get some guys back going into their next matchup, which is going to be a very tough one. They're back on the road. Darlington Tigers, ultimate road warriors this year. 6 out of 10 of their games are on the road with this schedule, and they're going to Whitfield Academy next week to take on the Wolfpack, and that'll be a tough matchup.
Yeah,
it's a good team.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's going to be interesting. And I do want to mention a comment we have before we wrap up our conversation about Darlington. It's from Kelly Fountain, and I bet you can probably guess what he said. John J.
Rambo. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
So, yeah, there you go. Well, let's see, man. Here are the games that do you want to touch on any other things from last week?
Yeah, but I mean, I know the Rome Wolves don't celebrate losses, but they fought hard against Carrollton. Looked like they were going to pull that one out, but the Trojans came back and won that one. So Rome will look to get its first win this week against another tough team. They've got Toombs County. No breaks on that Rome schedule.
Oh, isn't that the truth? Yeah. And we'll tell you more about that one coming up in just a little bit. In fact, let's break down the slate of games that we're going to be picking in our next segment and then beyond. But we will talk about Southeast Whitfield going to Almerchi, H.A. Lindsey Stadium to take on the Almerchi Indians. It'll be the Coosa Eagles playing a team that we had the opportunity to see last week, much improved Ridgeland Panthers. That should be a great matchup. It's going to be the Tryon Bulldogs at Model at Woodard Tuggle Stadium taking on the Blue Devils. That should be a really tough matchup, I would presume. The Pepperell Dragons are hitting the road. Little rivalry matchup between the Dragons and the Cedartown Bulldogs. You've got the Ringgold Tigers at Rockmart Yellow Jackets. Both those teams are excellent football teams, so that one could be an interesting one. The marquee matchup, along with the Rome one that we're going to talk about a little bit later this weekend, is definitely Calhoun Yellow Jackets at Cartersville Canes. Doesn't get much bigger.
No, that's big time.
So that'll be fun to dive into. And then, as you referenced earlier, Toombs County Bulldogs, a team that won a championship last year. They're a single A team, but in a lot of ways,
not a single A team. Yeah,
it's not really like playing a single A team. And they're going to be at Barron Stadium taking on the Rome Wolves. So I would say to the fans, get out there and show up for your team. And create lots of noise and havoc and be that 12th man coming up in that game. And hopefully Rome will be able to notch the win and like you say, another tough matchup. They're a very good football team. Wow. So we are going to take a break, Ian, and when we come back, we're going to do some picking and some grinning. We're having a good time. This week in Northwest Georgia football. We got some predictions coming up after these messages. And this program, by the way, is brought to you by Riverside Auto Group. We appreciate them being with us for a long, long time and hopefully a long time to come. We'll be right back.
Are you shopping for a new car, truck, or SUV? Riverside Auto Group has a location to meet your needs. Browse their selection online at riversideautogroup.com or visit with them in person at Riverside Chevrolet GMC in Rome, Riverside Toyota in Rome, Riverside Nissan in Rome, or Riverside GMC Cadillac in Cartersville. Locally owned and operated by the Welburn family since 1974. That's Riverside Auto Group.
Well, hello, everyone, and welcome back to our Week 4 edition of This Week in Northwest Georgia Football. It's picking time, Matt. You ready to jump into this slate?
I am, man. And again, I was a little bit stressed when I was sitting up at 5:30 in the morning the other day trying to cram my picks in and trying to pick these games because, like I say, good matchups coming up this weekend. So let's get it started. We're going to start with Southeast Whitfield going to Almerchi. A little bit of background on the series history. Almerchi leads at 3-2, so a short series history. The Indians have won the last two meetings by a combined score of 99-23. Had a tough first game. Got beat by Ridgeland, as we've mentioned several times. Much improved Ridgeland team, so that gives you a little more perspective, I think, on that matchup than maybe initially thought. So I'm really curious to see how you see this one, man.
Yeah, absolutely. My first thought on this is you and I found out this isn't the Ridgeland team we've been accustomed to seeing the last few years. And we saw flashes of that when we went and watched Darlington play them at their place last year. You could tell they had some kids that were going to, mature and that program was going to start getting back on the right track. So I think you look back on that week 1 loss to Ridgeland, and Armerchi fell behind pretty big, but only lost that game 38-20. So I think maybe there was a little overreaction in that loss. Now we know what Ridgeland's made of. And so I don't think you can put as much on that loss as maybe you did at first glance. Southeast Whitfield, this program has struggled to score games at Armerchi. I think tonight's night, Coach Avery gets that first win.
I'm going to go ahead and say I agree with you on this one. It might be a little trickier than it has been in recent years because Southeast Whitfield's been competitive in a couple of their matchups so far. But one of the things I think bodes well for this Almerchi team, and you heard Coach Avery talk about it in the newspaper earlier this week, is he really loved the competitive spirit of his team in that first game against a much improved Ridgeland football team and their work ethic and all those sorts of things. And so, if you just keep moving forward and keep doing what your coach is asking you to do and just keep grinding, good things will happen to you. And this is one of those matchups where I think some good things can happen for the Almerchi Indians if they keep that work ethic in mind, which I believe they will. And so I'm going to go with Almerchi in this game, and this could be a momentum-building opportunity for this young squad, and I think it will be. So I agree with you on this one. I'm going to take Almerchi to win the game. Next game on the list. Wow, I'm excited to talk about this game, much more so after seeing this brand of Ridgeland Panthers play football. It's been a while since they've had a good football team. They're a pretty good football team.
Yeah.
So Coosa Eagles could have their hands full up there at Ridgeland against the Panthers. Series history-wise, Coosa had their way last year, and the only matchup, they won it 28-6. What do you think, man?
Yeah, well, the Ridgeland Panthers are getting a lot of love on this program today.
They are. They look pretty good.
Yeah. I agree. They've got a quarterback who can get it down the field. They like to get it to their playmakers and space on the screen game. So Coosa's going to have to play some sound defense because they've got some playmakers who can get those explosive plays, and they'll need to keep those guys in check. So the Coosa defense's performance is going to be key to them getting a win. On the other side, you go back to Coosa last week. They fell behind against Model, fought back, tied that game, and then the Blue Devils got away from them in the second half. But I love that fight that they were able to come back, at least notch the game at a tie at 16-16 before it got away from them. I think Charlie Cannon goes on the road, has a big night. I think that Eagles defense does a good job keeping Ridgeland in check. But it's going to be tough, and I think it's going to be close. But I'm taking the Coosa Eagles.
All right. So this game is one of those games I think it's going to be high scoring because I think this Ridgeland team with their big offensive line, they've got a quarterback, Caden Williams. He's a small guy, about 5'7", but he can throw the ball pretty well. Yeah. He can run. He's elusive. You got a solid running game behind Ball and that offensive line. Athletic receivers. The one that stands out is Jadarius Hinton that we saw make some big plays last week. They look the part. They play with a lot of fight. They're not going to quit on you, especially playing on their home field. The Eagles have a talented offense led by Charlie Cannon. He was 17 of 23, passed for 2 touchdowns, 189 yards. Did throw an interception against Model last week. They're going to have to expect a lot of him and his playmakers that he's got around him, and I do think they've got some pieces there that can help him get some points. But I predict they're going to need a lot of them because I think Ridgeland is going to get their points in this football game. And I think Ridgeland is going to win the football game. I wouldn't have predicted that a couple of weeks ago. But this team, we talk about the fight and the grit that Darlington has. This team didn't quit either. Yeah. And they've got that piece. And now after what they did last week, being competitive against a team that really beat them pretty bad last year, I think that helps you build some confidence. Sure. And that could bode well for them playing at home. So I'm going to take Ridgeland. We do have a difference.
Okay.
All right, let's see. We've got a couple of more that we're going to pick before we take another break, and this is another really tough one to pick, an interesting matchup. It's going to be the Tryon Bulldogs going to Woodard Tegel Stadium to play the Model Blue Devils. Blue Devils off of a big win over Coosa last week. Tryon leads this series 28-18-1. They won it last year in a close one, 22-12, and this is a team, Ian, that lost, I think, 16 starters, something like that. I forget the exact number. So Tryon's replacing a lot of guys. They're still a very competitive football team. I think this is going to be a great ball game.
Yeah. Both of these teams come in 1-2. Model played some really stiff competition in the first couple of weeks, losing to Sonoraville and then to a really good Cass team, but found their first W last week in a cross-county rivalry against Coosa. Now, they get to take on the Bulldogs. They get them in Shannon. 2 great coaches with Coach Honeycutt and Coach Patrick. We've said it before. I think if you're going to get Tryon, now's the time. But watch out because for all that they lost, I know they're 1-2, but they've played some good football teams. They got the win against Dade, which was a great win for them. But they've been right there with the rest of their opponents. So I think you better get Tryon now. I think Model playing this one at home finds a way to get the W, but watch out. The Bulldogs are going to get better every week.
I stressed over this one. I have to admit, because, Model picked up a lot of offense last week. Jaden Edwards rushed for 181 yards. Colin Watson rushed for 157. So they got a good push up front last week against Coosa. They were able to get that running game going. That opened up some things for their wide receivers. Chaden Woodley is an outstanding athlete, so they can get the ball to him in space. He can make some big plays for them with his athleticism, and I think they're going to be able to do that some. But the interesting matchup to me in this game is watching Model's offense was red hot against Coosa last week, going up against a really gritty, tough, hard-nosed football team. And Tryon Bulldogs. I kind of feel like this is going to be a different game than you saw with the shootout with Coosa and Model last week between these two teams.
Low
and Jeff
scoring.
Honeycutt.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be low scoring. I think it's going to be old school smash mouth football. If you love that physical kind of game, you're going to love this one because that's what you're getting, I have a feeling. So at the end of the day, I'm with you. I'm taking Model because they're playing at home. If this were at Sam R. McCain, I'd probably say the same thing for Tryon. But I'm going to take the Blue Devils as well. So we've picked 4, right?
That's right.
3 left.
That's right. 1 difference so far.
I think that's puts us in a good spot here to take our final break. We're going to do that and come back and pick 3 more games. And you want to talk about some? No, we picked 3.
Yeah, we picked
got
3.
1 more. Let's pick 1 more.
Go ahead and pick it.
Okay, let's do it.
All right.
This is the Pepperell Dragons and the Cedartown Bulldogs. Pepperell 1-2. Cedartown is 1-2. Cedartown leads at 17-14-1. So this has been pretty tight series-wise, but not last year. The Dogs won this one 44-0. Can the Pepperell Dragons go on the road and tighten this thing up a little bit, do you think?
I mean, I think so. I think they can. I think they can make a run at this one. Pepperell lost another close game last week. They had taken a lead, and Heritage Christian found a way to come back and get that win. And we're learning more and more about how good these teams are as the season goes on. But I think Pepperell's a good team. I think they can go on the road and keep this competitive. But to go to Cedartown and beat the Bulldogs is a tall order. And I know that they've struggled as well. They're off to a 1-2 start as well. but I like the Bulldogs to win this thing.
I like the Bulldogs to win this game too, Ian. And I think, one of the things that you got to mention talking about Pepperell is last week they were up by 10 last few minutes of the game against Christian Heritage. I was reading in the Rome News-Tribune that a block punt resulted in a line score, and then an ensuing onside kick set up a 50-yard drive that ended up being the game winner. So you got to overcome those sorts of things and just have a short-term memory, move on, go to the next game. And that's one of those things that, you go through something like that, and then the very next week you go on the road and you play against a team that's got a bigger roster, they're deeper, probably bigger, have a few more athletes, that sort of stuff. So it's a tall order, and so I do think Pepperell will be more competitive than they were last year, but I can't say enough that they'll be able to take down a bigger team like the Cedartown Bulldogs. And not to mention, when you look at this Cedartown team, Coach Atha is in his first year. I'm still having to adjust to that.
I am too.
He was at Darlington 21 seasons as a head coach. He was there, I think, 9 prior to that with Coach Sharp as an assistant, 30 years. Now he's with Cedartown, and he's getting this team on the right track. They had a tough start that first game, but they've been very competitive in their last couple of games. I think they're just going to get better and better because that's the kind of coach that he is. He'll get things going. So I think this will be a tough game here for Pepperell, but I still think they've got some exciting and positive things to come. Throughout the rest of the season, but this could be a tough one. I'm going to go with Cedartown Bulldogs in the game.
We agree.
Right. Now we've picked 4 games.
That's right.
We're going to take a break. We're glad you're with us. This is This Week in Northwest Georgia Football, Week 4 edition, with 3 more games to pick.
Are you shopping for a new car, truck, or SUV? Riverside Auto Group has a location to meet your needs. Browse their selection online at riversideautogroup.com or visit with them in person at Riverside Chevrolet GMC in Rome, Riverside Toyota in Rome, Riverside Nissan in Rome, or Riverside GMC Cadillac in Cartersville. Locally owned and operated by the Welburn family since 1974. That's Riverside Auto Group.
All right, we got 3 more games to pick, so we better just go ahead and jump right in because we're running low on time. This one's going to be another really good matchup, I think. This is going to be maybe. Ringgold Tigers 3-0, Rockmart Yellow Jackets 1-1. Series history-wise, Rockmart leads it in 4-0. They won this one in a close one last year, 23-20. I'd forgotten how close that matchup was. So do you feel like we're going to get that kind of game again?
I mean, look, Ringgold's humming. They're like you said, they're 3-0. This is a team that was really good last year, and gave Rockmart all they could handle. This game's at the Rock. I think that's a big edge for the Yellow Jackets. Rockmart lost to Cartersville last week. There's no shame in that game. The Hurricanes are an absolute state power, and play in a much higher classification. So they were just outmanned in that game. But we talk about Biff Parson a lot. We're going to be talking about his son Tucker for the next 4 years. Freshman quarterback. He's playing lights out. I think he has a big game, and the Rockmart Yellow Jackets get past the Ringgold Tigers.
I'm with you, but I still keep going back to that score from last year. Yeah. I do kind of feel like this will be a competitive game. When you look at strength of schedule that you just referenced, obviously, Rockmart's played some really tough teams. They played Cedartown, and then they played Cartersville. Meanwhile, Ringgold, lopsided wins over Dade and Murray. I'm not sure what Dade has this year. I think they've kind of struggled the first few games. Same thing can be said for Murray. They've struggled for a while. Then you have a close win over Heritage. And Heritage is one of those teams that's built a reputation. I know they've got a new head coach, but I think he has sort of a similar MO in terms of that hard-nosed kind of football that they've built over there. So I think that is, a good win for Ringgold. But I just think that Rockmart is one of those teams that at the end of the year, I don't like to make any bold predictions at the beginning of the season, but, history's shown and the coaching has shown and the talent level that we see at Rockmart has shown that I don't think it's too big of a statement to predict that they could make a massive run in the playoffs this year. And they've got that mentality of taking every opponent just as serious as the next and putting that work ethic in. So they're going to be ready for this football game, especially with how close it was last year. I just think Rockmart has a few more playmakers and a few more explosive plays in the tank there, and will win the game. So I'm going to take Rockmart as well. 2 more games to pick, and boy, they are big
doozies.
Doozies.
Yeah.
Calhoun Yellow Jackets and Cartersville Canes. Calhoun 2-0, Cartersville's 3-0. Canes lead the series 33-7-1. The Canes won it last year 35-13. It was a close game for a while. The Canes pulled away. Give us a few thoughts on this one, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Clash of the Titans on Friday night down in Cartersville. If you got nothing on your schedule, maybe make the trip to watch this one in person. What I love about this is both teams have been tested. They play tough competition in non-region play. I also love that they've got this scheduled. They were in the same region there for a few years. They didn't have to play this game, but they made it happen, So it's going to be an interesting matchup. To me, this is a quarterback duel. You've got Nate Russell for Cartersville and Trace Hawkins for Calhoun, slinging the rock around the yard. Everything says take the home team, but I'm going the other direction. I'm taking Calhoun to win it on the road.
Very interesting. Very interesting. This is one of those situations, Ian, and to kind of, piggyback on your point, it's pretty interesting when you have 2 high school football programs locking horns that can run the football and also have the great passing games that you described. Because sometimes you kind of see one or the other, or you see a team that's got a strong running game, can throw a little bit, but these guys, they can do it all. Mm-hmm. And so they've got, such dynamic offensive attacks against the other team. They're both good, defensively sound teams. I think this is going to be a slobber knocker of a football game. I don't think it's going to be as lopsided of a score as it was last year. And so this is one of those situations where I wouldn't necessarily say that I view it as a coin flip, maybe pretty close to that. But I would definitely give the edge to Cartersville in their depth, and then getting this game at home. I think that's another factor. They got the 12th man on their side. So I'm going to take the home team. I'm going to take Cartersville to win the game. So we have yet
another difference.
We got 2 so far. Is that right?
Yeah.
All right. We got one more game to pick, and that's going to put a wrap on this edition of This Week in Northwest Georgia Football. And it's another biggie. It's going to be Toombs County Bulldogs at 3-0 off of a championship from last year, just picking up where they left off, it looks like. And they're going to Barron Stadium to take on Rome. And when you look at Rome's, record so far, that's a bit deceptive. They played 2 unbelievably top-tier programs in the state to start the season, came up a little bit short last week against Carrollton, which is an outstanding football team. I don't put too much into that other than just realizing how competitive they've been against some of the best teams in the state. They're going to get better every week. They've got a tough test this week, but I think they're ready for this one. I really do.
Yeah, Toombs got them last year in a close one. I think they won that game 34-28, if I'm not mistaken. And a lot of people were like, "Oh, I can't believe Rome got beat by a single A school." We said it in the last segment when we were previewing this game. Toombs County is not your run-of-the-mill single A school. They're a state championship program. They've got some dudes, and they're going to come in here. A lot of these players were on the roster last year, and they came to Barron and won. So they're going to come in here expecting to get another win. But I think the Rome Wolves are going to be ready. I think we're going to see Aiden McPherson have a great game at quarterback, get it out to his weapons on the perimeter, and the Rome offense is going to be able to get enough points to get the first victory of the season.
I'm going to agree with you on this one. I think Rome is going to pick up the victory here. I don't think it's going to be easy because when you look at this Toombs County Bulldogs football team, they're another one of those teams that throws the ball a pretty good bit. Their quarterback, Joseph Owens, threw the ball 30 times last week for 344 yards and 2 touchdowns, completed 19 of his passes. He also had a 100-plus yard rusher who scored a few touchdowns in the game, so they can run the ball and mix in the pass. Pretty dynamic offense there, so that's tough to defend. But I think Rome has the dudes to do it. And if there's one thing that we know about a Rome football team is Coach Reed is one of the best coaches in the state of Georgia, hands down. He's won multiple championships. He's won back-to-back at Rome, also has championships in another state. The man knows how to coach a football team, and they will be ready and prepared to compete in this football game, and I predict they're going to win. We've got a listener-viewer prediction as well on this one and threw out a score. But Kelly Fountain is so confident that the Rome Wolves are going to win this game. He's thrown the score 44-17 out there.
Ooh,
He thinks they're going to light up.
Dominant win for the
with some
Wolves.
offense in this game. So that'll be great to see. So, yeah, and they've got some dynamic playmakers. You mentioned McPherson at quarterback, and then, of course, the wide receivers he's got it to get it to in their running game. I think this is one of those games where you see them take the next step forward and put it all together. Sometimes it takes a couple of games to get there.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially when you're playing
Carrollton
championship and Creekside. Yeah,
you know, I mean, my goodness.
Yeah.
So, anyway, well, that's pretty much it, man. That's going to wrap up this edition of This Week in Northwest Georgia Football. I almost forgot the name of the show, but I have not forgotten that it is presented by Riverside Auto Group, and we appreciate them making it possible for us to get here and give you our predictions for what it's worth each and every week.
Bet a ball.
Yeah, and we've got two differences, so we could be tied at the end of the weekend.
We could. I hope we are.
I could be up by 4 games.
That's right. That's right.
Which
could go either way.
Obviously, what I'm shooting for.
Of course.
But anyway, well, that puts a wrap on this edition. Thanks for everybody watching and listening, and hope you have a great weekend. Hope your team wins. That puts a wrap on this edition of This Week in Northwest Georgia Football from WLAQ YouTube and Facebook Live. Brought to you by Riverside Auto Group. Have a wonderful weekend.
This has been another edition of This Week in Northwest Georgia Football, brought to you by Riverside Auto Group and produced by WLAQ Sports. We appreciate you tuning in and invite you to tune in again next week. Please like, share, and subscribe.